Hey guys, welcome back to the Max Spence Business Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, but before I jump into that, if you guys like the content I'm putting out, the people I'm interviewing, please like, subscribe, leave a review. It helps out a ton with the podcast and also the people that are coming on the show. If you can go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, that helps out a ton as well. So without further ado, today's guest is Ken. So Ken is the founder of Tectonic TLC Team. So Ken draws on over 30 years of experience in the world of leadership, coaching, and team building. He strives to become a difference maker for the teams he works with, regardless of the arena they compete in. Fortune 500 companies, high-tech startups, non-for-profit agencies, elite sports teams, and athletes. It's great having you on the show today, Ken.
Hey, Max, no problem. And for those who are going to be viewing this, they should understand that you're not a bad host by not pronouncing my last name. There's a combination of forces at play. One, you've had your wisdom teeth pulled, so saying Evraire is a little challenging. So for those of you who don't line up and start pillaging the village because you didn't get my last name, please put the torches away.
That is something I do want to mention, that I like you said, I just got my wisdom teeth pulled like 2 days ago, so my left side of my face is still like swollen up and it's a little bit hard to speak a bit, but why don't we just jump right into this? So for people that haven't come across any of your content on LinkedIn or maybe YouTube, why don't we just start with the basics? Like, where did you grow up? What school did you go to? And what was your first passion?
Okay, yeah, born in Toronto, grew up here in Ottawa. We moved here to my dad and my mom, a very young family, very athletic family growing up, because my dad had played pro baseball in the minors of Cincinnati and Philadelphia, and he counts some of his teammates. Pete Rose, obviously a lot of people know. Richie Allen, if you're a baseball connoisseur, you know who he is. And he was a young man with a family of 9 brothers and 1 sister. And my mom came from a downtown family as well. They had barely any nickels to rub together to survive growing up, but they had each other, and they got married in Tampa. And when he was playing for the Tampa Tarpons, and I have 4 sisters and a brother. And growing up in Ottawa, I was your typical gym rat, the Boys and Girls Club, or in my school at Centennial Public School. I played all sports, and I was fortunate in that my most significant role models were my mom and my dad. I didn't have to look too far for role models, but then the Boys and Girls Club also had role models visit us in terms of the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Ottawa 67s, and even the Ottawa Police and the Ottawa Fire Department, where they'd show up and play basketball or play ball hockey with us. So that's what I did growing up in Ottawa. And I originally wanted to be a hockey player, like a lot of Canadian kids, but I remember playing competitive Bantam A hockey. I was pretty good. We all thought we were pretty good. And we had a practice out in Almont, and everybody said, they get to practice early because there's this kid from the PN who's pretty good. He's going to be on the ice practicing before us. And we're like, well, how good can he be? We're pretty good. And we got there, and it took us about 5 minutes to realize that we weren't as good as this guy. And his last name started with a Y. And of course, that's Steve Eiserman. So a lot of us quit hockey not too long after that. I thought of baseball because of my dad playing. I had 2 pitches, a fastball and a not quite sure where it was going ball. And I hit too many batters. I thought it was too dangerous. So I decided to take up a safer sport, and that was football. And it led me to high school and playing local ball and then university at Laurier, and then the pros with Saskatchewan, Hamilton, Ottawa. And that leapfrog to broadcasting and all the other stuff I do.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's actually something that when I was doing my research, I saw that you played in the CFL for a bit of time. So why don't we start right there? So how like, going into the CFL, like, you're actually the second person I've had on the podcast who actually comes from a bit of a, professional sports background. Same, a gentleman named Milano, he was in the CFL as well. But yeah, so talking about the CFL, I find a lot of sports, people are really good at, once they get out of like being in professional sports, or sort of like, starting a business or working in like the sales environment, because it's that competitiveness, right? So how making that transition, did you find it hard to go from the CFL into like the regular business world? And did sort of like the CFL sort of, what were the sort of like the pros and cons of it?
Well, going to the pros was an eye-opener because I was a good enough football player in university that I, I thought I was competing hard and thought I had some skill. But when I got to the pros, I realized that I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a good athlete. And I was fortunate that the Saskatchewan Roughriders drafted me in the second round, ninth overall. But they had already drafted a receiver. So it was a surprise that they drafted me. And the second surprise, the biggest surprise was when I went up on stage to shake their hands and they welcomed me to the team, they said, "You're now a free safety." And I hadn't played free safety since I was 12, 13. And so I was a little taken aback. But then when I got to training camp and started learning the intricacies of defenses, and then went back to playing receiver, it was like I spent time behind enemy lines. I saw their blueprints. I figured out their secret plan. And so I became a student of the game. And because if you think you're going to do it just as an athlete, there's so many great athletes at that level that unless you're Rocket Ishmael or Mike Pinball Clemens or a Hall of Fame type player, you can get away with being talented. But all those players worked awfully hard. And I realized that I had to work hard, but I also had to work smart and figure things out and be trustworthy. My quarterbacks had to trust me. And that was important to me. Damon Allen, Mike Kerrigan, Todd Dillon. I had a bunch of quarterbacks, but Damon was predominantly my quarterback. And I realized that if he trusts you, you don't let him down. If you're in the right place at the right time and doing your job, then you're going to be successful. And when I left the pros, it was challenging in that I didn't think I was prepared for life beyond football. I'd sit down late in my career when my body was a little beat up and thinking, okay, I got to really face the demon in the eyes here and know that I can't play football forever. And start figuring out what my resume is going to look like. Put a piece of, this would be pre-computer, so a piece of paper and a pen and start jotting down my skills. And I was thinking, geez, if there's a company out there that needs a receiver who can catch a ball on second down and 8 in the red zone, then I'm their guy. But outside of that, I had no real skill. And so in a lot of ways, I was lost. So much so that sometimes when you're lost, it's an all or nothing affair. And I believed I was a complete failure coming out of football. I didn't realize that I had transferable skills, a lot of them, that my ego didn't want to recognize. Because I went from being a guy out there playing football in the crowd and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm a guy trying to figure out my way. And it was the first time I ever had to really figure out my way. And it was scary. It was really challenging. And I made some mistakes along the way, which is sort of part of the deep learning process, right? The whole idea of that book, The Talent Code, where deep learning requires mistakes. It's going to happen. And you got to look at that mistake and not take it personally and look at it more as an opportunity. You learn something there. Now you know. And I decided to become a computer programmer, even though I hated computers. I didn't know anything about computers. The only thing I knew about anything close to computers was the flux capacitor from Back to the Future movies. That's all I knew, right? So, and I spent 17 grand on it. I spent 17 grand on a diploma that I never really used. Then I eventually shifted to broadcasting and into my work now.
Okay. So what made you want to go into was that outside pressure that made you go into the computing, computer space, or was
everybody seemed to be doing it?
Okay.
Right? This is a high-tech city, right? And Microsoft, and there are all kinds of programs and certificates and diplomas available. So, and everybody was doing it. And me being the lemming that I was at the time, even though the suit didn't fit, I was too scared to go through the door and figure out what was on the other side. And so I decided to just take the path of least resistance, which was the path that everybody else was taking. And I wasted time. And we all do that. And it was I'm a big firm believer, and I'm not sure if you are, Max, but we wake up each day and we either consciously or subconsciously ask ourselves one simple question: am I in my right place and right time? Right? You're starting this podcast, and you probably say, well, there's a million podcasts out there. Why should I do this? Why would anybody listen to Max? And then you start going, so this feels pretty good, but how do I get the really good guests now? How do I? And you keep body punching yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus saying, hey, I'm on the right path. Right. And I body punched myself a lot back in the day until I realized that I knew what I wanted to do, and that was the broadcasting card. And my approach to that was I didn't know anything about it. I went in and did a quick demo, and it wasn't very good. And so I made an appointment with the sales manager of the TV station, CHRO, now new RO in City CTV Ottawa now. But my appointment with the sales manager, I'm waiting in the lobby to talk to him. So I'm thinking I'll get with the sales team, and that'll be my way into the TV side. And the news director walked by and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, this is my plan." He said, "Well, don't worry about that. You weren't great, but you weren't horrible. Start part-time and start figuring things out." Like I had to figure things out as a free safety in Saskatchewan. And it was great because I put 60 hours a weekend as a part-timer.
Wow.
I started learning my craft. I had to learn my craft, right? I remember grade 12, I played for the Ottawa Sooners. We went to the national championship and we lost. I remember the 10-hour bus ride from Windsor. And I just wanted more. I spoke to my dad and I said, "I want more. I want to get to university." Because I'd seen a couple of guys play university that were former teammates on TV. Perry Cece, Cody Cece's dad, and another guy, Scott Lucky. And I wanted to play college ball. I wanted to get my education. And so I quit the Sooners and I moved to Toronto, lived with my sister. And I remember walking down Yonge Street with not much else to do. I didn't have a real busy schedule. and I realized that the world's not going to stop. Right? We spend a lot of time worried what people think of us, when in fact they don't think of us at all. They're doing their own thing. And here in Ottawa, growing up, 2 degrees of separation in school. If you have green hair in high school, you go to the reunion, there's the guy with green hair, there's the girl with green hair. But in Toronto, you walk 6 blocks, you see 5 people with green hair, right? So it's all about perspective. And I realized that when I was in Toronto, the only person who's going to get in my way is myself. Now, we can be our own worst enemies. Everybody is. But it was a real revelation for me in terms of moving forward, in terms of I can play pro. The only person who's going to stop me is myself. I can get my degree. The only person who's going to stop me is myself. I can do all these things as long as I get out of my own way. And that's sort of been my ethos moving forward.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I actually agree in that. I agree with that, like heavily amount. Like, like the only person that really stops you from doing anything you want to do in your life is literally just yourself. There's nobody out there that can literally stop you. It's only you, right? Like if you just set your mind to go towards something and don't give up, even through like, the first couple of years of it being like pretty crappy and having to slug through the trenches of trying to figure things out. Like, and it's probably been like, when you joined the Saskatchewan Rough Riders and, then when you got that, into the broadcasting area, it's like, you just put your head down, you just kept working no matter what. And then you became successful because, you realized that the only person that could really stop you was yourself. And once you realize that like it unlocks like so much power in you, right? Because you're able to achieve anything you want to achieve.
And I'm a big believer in that when someone tells you no, you can't do it, and you believe them, you become them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so surround yourself with like-minded people. You hear it all the time. Surround yourself with people who are seeking challenges, want to do different things, versus sitting on your phone on Instagram, looking at TikTok, thinking, "Oh, I want to be that person. I want to be that person." Most of the stuff on Instagram and all that kind of stuff isn't genuine. But the people who succeed aren't afraid of work.
Yeah.
Aren't afraid of work.
Yeah. Actually, I heard a really good quote from a guy, and he was talking about like to be successful in business or to be successful in anything, you sort of need to have like 2 things. You need to have the vision to sort of see and believe in yourself that, hey, I can actually achieve this. But then you also need the work ethic to get there, right? And if you're missing one if you're missing one of them, then you're not going to be successful with what you want to achieve, right? Because if you don't have the vision, then you're not going to believe in yourself to actually take those risks and steps to actually, get to where you want to go. But if you don't have the work ethic, then you're not going to put in the time to actually, the actual work that's needed to get to that location, right?
The common denominator for I see 99% of people who are successful is that they put the time in. And they don't see it as work, they see it as honing their craft. And if you're passionate about it, so when you're in the elevator and someone says, "Hey, Max, what do?" You already know and you're ready. If there's a hesitation, well, I kind of got a podcast and kind of doing this, kind of doing that, right? You got to be exact, precise, succinct, and figure that out and say, okay, this is it, and I'm going with it, right?
Mhm.
And uh, for the most part, uh, a lot of my success and a lot of my ethos is connected to my willingness and wanting to connect with other people. I love football. Ask me about the score of a game, can't tell you. But ask me about my teammates. I'll tell you all the stories till next week. Okay, let's talk broadcasting. Okay, I'll tell you about perhaps the greatest team I ever was a part of, including all the sports teams I was on. The new RO 8 channel team, fantastic people. We all stay in touch to this day, right?
Mhm.
And how did I get into leadership and coaching? One, because I love that. I want to connect, communicate, and collaborate with people. Plus, I'm an older dad, right? I've turned 55 next month, and I got 3 kids. They're 12, 10, and 9. And they have one childhood. And this is the greatest chapter of my life. Forget football, forget TV, forget all the ego stuff, all the fun stuff, right? There's nothing more important in my life than being a dad and
Mhm.
being with my kids. And I learned that from my dad and my mom. We were very poor financially, but we were very wealthy in terms of life experiences. And
Mhm.
there's only one time we realized we're poor. And I hate going on tangents here, but it's a story that I love telling is that we lived downtown Ottawa and we trick or treated in the neighborhood. We knew everybody and we got a bunch of stuff. And my dad said, yeah, pile into the car. We're going to go trick or treat in another neighborhood. He took us to Island Park. And if you're familiar with that neighborhood, it's very rich, a lot of embassies, and right? And they have their own laneway and they have their own trees. And you don't have to ride your bike all the way around the block to put your bike away at the end of the day. You just put it in their garage. And I remember going to the door, trick or treat, and they give you great treats. And the ratio, the trick or treat ratio was good because you had to walk further between doors, which I didn't enjoy. But I remember them giving away money. So I get to my dad, I said, Dad, they give away money. They're so rich, they're giving away money. He says, No, son, that's the program called UNICEF. I said, What's UNICEF? He said, Well, it's for poor people. I said, well, that's us. And I spent the next year trying to get myself a UNICEF box. That was the first time and probably the only time I ever felt like, okay, I realized that we didn't have a lot. But then all my friends all wanted to hang out with us because we weren't about money. We were about life experiences and connecting with people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, 100%. And like that is very true. Like, it's like just living life without, like you don't
Mhm.
need money to have a great life. Like there's so much stuff to do out there that, you don't need to have, thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't need a Ferrari or any of that type of stuff. It's like
Nope.
there's so much greatness in life that's, just right out there to, go and enjoy. And you don't need money to enjoy it. So I actually love that a lot. So now sort of jumping into the coaching side of stuff.
Sure.
When did you start that, and what sort of made you want to become, a coach, like with leadership training and team building?
Yeah. It started really, um, the thought process began when my wife and I pregnant for our first son, Elijah, my oldest. And she was pregnant, and we were going for an ultrasound, the final ultrasound before he was born. And I got a text message, an email, sorry, from work saying, come in, we have a staff meeting, a last second staff meeting. So went in, and I didn't really read the email. I saw a staff meeting, come on in. So I went in, and I walked in, and they're asking me, are you in the studio or are you in the gallery? So what do you mean? So well, there's 2 meetings, one in the studio, one in the gallery. And it was determined that the people who are in the gallery were keeping their jobs. And the people in the studio were being let go. And I was in the studio. So I was getting my severance package that day. But I was going to be a dad soon. And it was an ultrasound. And I didn't want Pamela to panic or worry. And so we made it a bit of an adventure, the same way my dad had. And start thinking about, okay, I'm a dad. This is bigger than me now. This is bigger than me wearing tight football pants and waving at a crowd and scoring touchdowns. This is bigger than me being on TV. This is children. And uh, I was just as scared at training camp, just as scared of starting broadcasting, or even more so when I became a dad. Right. And
Mhm.
that's when I started thinking about, I want to be around my kids. I want to tailor my schedule around them, but I want to be passionate about, because they won't see me play football. They won't see me do broadcasting, but they need to see me doing something that I'm passionate about so I can model it for them. So when they choose to do whatever they choose to do, they know that's possible. And that's how it really became, I, I've had great coaches, I've had horrible coaches, all kinds of experiences. And I thought, tap into that and use that. And at the same time, go back to work, become a better coach, become a better consultant, become a better team builder, become all that, and to create a business and make a living to support your family. And that's what I've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So I actually just like something that I thought was really interesting, like, and I think is a really cool experience. And to the younger viewers, like the majority of my demographic is in that 23 to 27. So the majority of them, I would probably say, don't have kids as of yet. So just talking about that for a brief second, like how did your life sort of change when you were sort of in that, when you're having a kid, and like how does your ideology change, and how do you look at life?
The obvious is it wasn't about me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Walking down the street, playing football and wearing the newest shoes from Foot Locker, and you're better looking and smarter when you're a pro football player than what you actually are. And then TV and all that kind of stuff. That was all very much ego-driven stuff. But the minutia of parenting, right? The game doesn't end. You get to go home and have a couple of beers and relax, break down some film, and say, okay, how can I be better? You're constantly in the lane as a dad, as a mom, and uh, that full-time 24/7 dedication, and the anxieties and the fears, and rational or not, as a parent, is all part of that process. And that was the biggest thing for me. It really was, in that um, it's just so personal because there's so much at stake.
Yeah.
There's so much at stake. And I want my kids, when all is said and done, to say, hey, old man, hey, pops, you done good.
Yeah.
Better than any trophy, better than any championship, better than anything I would have ever accomplished.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Do you have kids? Do you have kids?
No, I'm 20 years old.
When you do, yeah. So when you do, you'll realize it. You'll see. Your arse is gonna pucker up. You'll be scared,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
All that stuff, but it's pretty cool. But the
yeah.
challenge is now, the reason why 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds aren't having kids is that back in the day, you can get a job and work 40 years at that same job and raise a family. It's not designed that way anymore. Now you're consulting. Now you got to work from home. Now you got to do business development. Now you got to be online. Now you got to do all this stuff just to make a living. And everybody has to look cool doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't want to look vulnerable. You don't want to look like you have a tough day. Whereas it used to be, you see a guy coming home from work and he's working, say in Hamilton, he's working in the steel factory in the furnaces, and he's dirtied up and sweaty and the whole bit. But there was great pride in seeing he went to work. You can see it. Mm-hmm. Now everybody wants to be perfect. Everybody wants to, live this disingenuous existence. They're on TikTok and they're on Instagram doing all this stuff. Then they post it and they go to the kitchen, they eat ramen noodles, right? And drink a beer and barely be able to sleep because they're just so panicked about what the next day is going to bring.
Yeah. Like it's very interesting how the cultures have changed, and how back, let's say 20 or 30 years ago, it's like you're saying, you could get a job and there was so much security in that job, whereas today there's not that much security, and I think values have changed a lot, with what people are wanting, right? Like more like I believe like our generation, like the millennials, or like even like my generation of being like in their 20s, is looking for more like people want to do more stuff. Like there wasn't like the, you know, like the ideology of like, you know, okay, you go to university, or, you know, you start your job, and then, you know, you get married, and then you have your kid, and you get your house, and you get your car, and then you're sort of just saying you raise your kid. Now it's like, you know, a lot of like my generation, everybody wants to go out, and they want to, you know, they want to travel, they want to start like a business, they want to do like all this other crazy stuff. And it's really interesting to see like, and how that, and how that's is gonna, you know, sort of change with each generation stuff. Like I'm excited to see, like when I'm 40 or 50, to see, you know, like my kids, and see what like their generation is doing, right? Because that's going to be a, like, I don't even know what that's going to be like.
Well, I think what's going to happen is that, see, when I was in high school, there's always one or two students, as soon as they graduate, they're saying, I'm backpacking Europe. And we're like, oh my God, I could never do that, right? I'm going to go live I'm going to hang out in hostels. I'm going to meet other people. I'm going to walk the path that other people are walking and understand the globe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one or two people would do that. And now everybody wants to do it, because one, you can, the idea of traveling and taking a flight to Barcelona and hanging out, it is far more people have done it. It seems like you can do it. And the idea that young people want more experiences. And in the end, the fact of the matter is people crap on millennials and that, you know, 20 to 25, 20 to 27. You crap on them and say, well, you're all absorbed. Yes, but with good reason, because going out and seeing the world is going to make you a better person. Now, if you're posing and doing the same duck face in every city you go in your pictures, right, in a club, what are you doing, right? Mm-hmm. You're probably going to wake up one morning and go, what am I doing? What is this bringing to me? Versus doing some real in-depth type of work where you go see the world, go talk to people. One of the greatest conversations I ever had in my entire existence was when I was covering the Sens and they had eliminated the Jersey Devils in Jersey. And my cameraman, Ryan Lee, great guy. I'm 6'1", 220. Ryan's 6'5", 220. And we're both bald. And we finished all the work after the game, and we're in Newark, New Jersey. And if you've ever been to Newark, it's not exactly the most friendliest place you'll ever get to. And we were hungry, so we ended up at a White Castle. It's one of those White Castles, you go in, you get the mini burgers, but you have to put your cash. They slide it out, put the cash in. It's all bulletproof glass, the whole bit, right? And we pull up, and the only saving grace was that we had Ottawa, New RO, Channel 6 on our truck. So police weren't going to bother with us. Nobody was going to bother with us. So that we weren't cops, essentially. So we're sitting there having a meal at midnight, and got into a conversation with a couple, a husband and a wife, and they had finished work late. And they're the type of people who work hard for a living. And I'd asked them, this is pre-Obama now, so why doesn't the entire African-American community get together, vote, and change the entire fabric of the United States of America? My being the idealist. And he looked at me and he says, do you have 5 hours to talk? I thought it was a simple thing. Go and vote and change the world. And it really wasn't. And he went into some depth in the conversation, and it was an eye-opener. Because I see the world today, and we always thought, you know, the United States was this Camelot where land of the free and opportunity for all and all this stuff. But we see it for what it really is, right? They hire a reality TV star to be their leader, right? And just those type of conversations and revelations you get from being around other people brings great value to your life.
Yeah, 100%. Like having those experiences and having those conversations with like, you know, people from different parts of the world and, you know, different cultures, I think is so crucial to, you know, people having empathy for other people, right? Because like, you know, if you can't understand where that other person's coming from, then, you know, you're not going to be able to connect and bond with that person. And I think, you know, having that ability to experience all of that, I think is going to help people sort of thrive and cultures thrive and like, you know, how the world thrives. Well, it'll help the world thrive better, right? Instead of being in like, you know, like what I was saying was just being in sort of that box where living in that same area, experiencing the same thing day after day after day, and not really seeing how other people sort of live and experience, right? So now I sort of want to go on to, the coaching sort of side of things, and, you giving some advice about how can, somebody who's in their early 20s that's maybe starting a business or has already started a business, what can they do to become a better leader, whether that's for their company or whether that's, in their position and they're actually taking on, a role as a manager?
I think the first things first is find something that you're really passionate about, that doesn't feel like work. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to come easy. There's going to be immediate success, but it's worthy of your time to work and to learn, hone your craft. I've said that a couple of times. Two, I think that the belief, because you see other people successful and you say, well, that's them. And this tormenting this type of thought that, well, that person's smarter, or that person does this, or this person does that. The journey is about figuring things out, right? Figuring things out. And if you can do that, then you're going to be okay. And two, again, that authenticity, the ethos of the authentic warrior is a warrior gets mad. An authentic warrior, the first thing is really driven by love and passion for others and respect for others. And they don't immediately grab the sword. They want to learn. They want to know about other people. And I'm a firm believer that it sends out an energy that people want to be around. People just want to be around people who care, who are authentic. And when you do business, authenticity, there's people who cheat, there's shysters, they're out there. But if you can be authentic, be passionate, put the work in, and tell your story without comparing your story to other people, you're going to connect with like-minded individuals, and there's going to be growth. Now, you're going to have a preconceived notion of what you think your growth is going to be and what your success is, and oftentimes it's not that. Oftentimes you may get there, but it's going to be a completely different path than you anticipate. Mm-hmm. And be open to that. Be really open to that, because there's going to be moments where you're going to want to quit. Like you feel like it's not meant for you. But if it keeps tapping you on the shoulder, right, and keep going with it. Here you were hosting a podcast with some old retired football players, a leadership coaching consultant. But who knows? 2 years from now, you may be that guy interviewing. Right? You're going to become a better interviewer. You're going to want to know more. You want to share more. And next thing you know, you're interviewing key important figures. Maybe you become Graham Bensinger, the next one. Mm-hmm. And to have an audience, to have a following, you have to be authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. If you're always fronting like that comes across right away. Like people are able to see that. People are like, okay, this person's not authentic. They're not living who they truly are. Right. And actually talking about that for a minute, my podcast is like, as it goes on, it gets better and better and better. But if anybody's listening to this that wants to start a podcast, I would say just go for it. Because for my podcast anyway, it's like I every single podcast I do, every single time I finish it, I think I did a terrible podcast. Oh, I think this was terrible. There's so much stuff I could have done to make this better. Sure. I could have talked about this. I could have done this. There's so much stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just as time progresses and you get that experience, it's just going to get better, and you just have to fight through it. that's sort of what I believe, right? It's just like, you just have to keep going no matter what. Like, and every day I think like, some days I think, oh my God, this was such like, I did such a terrible job on my part as like an interviewer. Like I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. But I mean, like, it's just all of experience, and it's just over time, it gets better and it gets better and it gets better.
One, it's natural to feel that way. It's like game film, practice film when I played football. You want to get better? Go watch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. I never played a perfect game. No one's ever played a perfect game. No one's ever had perfect. So if perfection is what you're seeking, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because what happens if you are perfect? What happens if you have a perfect podcast? If you look back and you go, wow. Now you got to measure yourself against perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're really screwed.
Yeah.
Because you're going to fail 99.9% in your eyes based on that premise. But it is like game film. Watch the film. The eye in the sky don't lie, as they say in football.
Mm-hmm.
And watch others. I loved watching other athletes. I watch other receivers, other DBs, other quarterbacks, all the other, because I want to get better. And I was perfectly okay with stealing things that they did,
Mm-hmm.
copying minutes, whatever, just to become better. And you will do the same thing. Guarantee it. We connect a year from now, you'll be a completely different host.
Yeah. Yeah.
if if you have the cajones, the passion, the drive, and the willingness to go for it, and know that every misstep is an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
You do that, you'll be okay.
Yeah, 100%. Like I actually look back at when I first started to now, and I'm like, actually, I have increased. I haven't gone a bit further, but it's not where I want to be. Like, it's as an interviewer, it's not somewhere I want to be yet. It's like, I want to get better at it. I want to get so much better at it. Cause like, I look at people that are like, the Joe Rogan experience, and this guy's been doing it forever, right? But he's just so good at carrying a conversation for like 3 hours and makes it feel like it's just like it's crazy how he just cut, like he just has a 3-hour conversation and the flow is so perfect. Like, there's like it just like sometimes when you're having a conversation, right, you sort of get like a little bit disconnected and it doesn't really feel like it's a good flow. But this guy just does such a good job at just keeping that flow for 3 hours and keeping you engaged. It's like it's so like like I don't know, like the word to describe it's just crazy to watch him like doing it. It's like, and as like as I learn more about podcasting, sort of looking at other podcasters, I start to take things from them, like you're saying about, like stealing those little types of little tricks and stuff that they use, because, it helps out a ton with the podcast. But now I know we're coming to the end here. I sort of want to jump to the last couple of minutes here. Just talking about like what other advice do you have for like people like in today's world, it's absolutely insane. Like like with like we're in a lockdown right now with like the young people trying to figure out what they want to do, trying to find jobs, going through a really rough time with like COVID and schooling and trying to figure out where they want to go while dealing with the pandemic and all that type of stuff. Like what like from somebody who's like you're 55 years old, you have a lot of experience in life, like you've lived a full life. Yep. What advice do you sort of have to the 20-year-olds and 23-year-olds of the world right now?
One, from a perspective position, know that setbacks are opportunities. They don't define you, right? There are a lot of people on the sidelines who watch you and see you fail, struggle, stumble, and your ego is going to get a little banged up. But know that your mission runs deeper than your ego. Ego is surface. Everybody starts somewhere, and you have a story. You have a story that you want to create, your life story, your storybook, and you got to fill it. Now, the great stories aren't just consistent success, consistent success, consistent success. What endears us as a species, human beings, with each other isn't the person who's successful. It's a person who may have been successful, crashed and burned and came back, or the person who went through a series of storms to get to the other side, to get to where they were. And we admire their why. Why are they doing that? What got them through that storm? And that might be the biggest thing. Whatever you're going to do, connect to something that you're willing to travel through the storm with.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've had 5 knee surgeries, 2 ankle surgeries, broken bones in my back, torn rib cartilage, concussions, been knocked out, donated my brain to science. When I pass, I leave this earth. But football was my travel companion. And my worst day playing football was still pretty good. Did it come with a price? Yes. Do I have regrets? No. Because it led to my broadcasting career. And it led to me meeting my wife. And it led to us becoming a family. It led to all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I was courageous enough. Because I had a couple of coaches who said, Ken, you'll never be a pro. You'll never make pro. If you look at team photos of me with the Sooners, you'd say, okay, who do you think would go pro? And they picked 3 or 4 other guys. But no one would ever have picked me. But
Yeah,
I was willing to go through the storm. I was willing to, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's the big part. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that as well, as like, you know, like sort of the chip on your shoulder type of mentality of just being like, just people that are like, oh, you're not going to do that. Or every time somebody says that to you, and just using that as just like jet fuel to just push you forward and achieve, you know, what, like to go pro, to then get into broadcasting, then to start your own company. Like all that stuff isn't easy to do. Like going pro is hard. Starting your own company is hard, right? But you just kept fighting through, and you kept going through it to achieve what you've achieved today, which I absolutely love. Awesome. So yeah,
I think that being in a stressful situation, being in football where every day you're competing for your job versus starting your business, at least you can breathe a little bit when you start your business. You can take a day and go to the beach with the kids and stuff. And again, I'm in my right place, my right time. I wake up in the morning, I'm okay. I know it's going to be hard. I know life's going to kick me in the ass sometimes, but I'm going to kick back sometimes.
Yeah. Awesome. So where can people find out, more about you on LinkedIn? Like if they're looking for coaches, if they want to reach out to you, maybe they have questions about, football or, like coaching or starting your own, like how do they, how to start your own coaching business? Where can they sort of find that information?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm on my website, kenevraire.com. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Ken Evraire, and all the standard social media platforms. I'm there, and connect with me. Love having conversations. Love answering questions. Love giving guidance, and I also love learning from some other people as well. So it's a multi-directional highway where you'll give me something, I'll give you something, and then we go off on our way and better people for the experience.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. Well, thank you again, Ken, for coming on the podcast. It's been really interesting, hearing about your story, hearing about, going from professional football to broadcasting to then, getting let go and then starting your own coaching business and, growing that. I think there's going to be a lot of value in this podcast. But yeah, thank you again, Ken, for coming on the show.
And Max, stay safe, stay well. And again, I want to see you in about a year or 2 and see what you've become, young man.